I discovered my wife's infidelity on the very same day I had planned to share the devastating news of my terminal illness. This double shock has led me to reconsider how I wish to spend my remaining days alone. I'm using this disposable account for all the obvious reasons, but I suppose the only reason I'm reaching out here is that, given my circumstances and the actions I need to take, I'm unable to fully disclose everything to those closest to me. On the 1st of December, I received the news I had been dreading. All the medical tests confirmed that I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Essentially, this means that the upcoming holiday season will be my last. I have come to terms with what lies ahead and find peace in that acceptance. Reflecting on my life, I feel that I have lived it well, and I can assure you that all of my loved ones will be taken care of after I'm gone. Naturally a private person, I kept my wife, Jane, unaware of my medical tests because I didn't want to burden her with worry until I had definitive answers. So, I returned home early that day to have the difficult conversation. This is not something I wanted to communicate over the phone or via text message. As you might expect, since I'm here on this platform, my life has undergone significant changes multiple times. That same afternoon, when I arrived home, I noticed the car of one of my business partners parked in the driveway. It was unmistakable, flashy, expensive, and sporting a personalized license plate. To say that this was out of the ordinary would be an understatement. I accessed our home camera system through my phone and saw that it was set to privacy mode and not recording at that time. Deciding not to make a fuss, I drove off to my farm property. Our camera system is primarily for safety, and I rarely monitor it unless something raises a concern. However, I also enjoy watching wildlife through the outside cameras and find it oddly satisfying to observe storms rolling in. A few years ago, I set up a second video recording system to archive footage locally, which isn't accessible via my phone. While at the farm, I accessed my computer and checked the other server to confirm my suspicions. Sure enough, there they were, snuggling in the living room, sipping wine, dancing together, and then moving up to the bedroom suite. It appeared they had left the doors open, as the microphone captured their activities even after they exited the camera's view. With my time now limited, I sought answers but wanted to avoid the drama of a confrontation and a divorce. You can call me whatever you like, but all the devotion and love I once had for her dissipated that afternoon. I'm experiencing all the emotions one would expect in such a situation. I understand that I'm not at fault. I have been a loyal and romantic partner. Now, I'm focusing on myself, knowing what's truly important to me. I reached out to my lawyer, and together we reviewed my will and our prenup. I informed him of the situation, and we worked to understand the duration and extent of this affair. What we uncovered is deeply troubling, and it seems that I either didn't truly know the woman I spent over 2 decades with, or perhaps something has changed in her. At this time, I have decided not to discuss anything with my children or grandchildren. I'm choosing to put on a brave face and get through the holidays, ensuring that my children and grandchildren have one last memorable holiday with me. I intend to be the loving father and grandfather while also fulfilling my role as a husband. For some context on potential questions, AP is a widower and has not remarried. He is a business partner but not a friend. I don't invest with friends. I never married the twins' mother, M and F, which was her choice, and I fully support that decision, believing it was the right one at the time. My children's mother, Sarah, married a wonderful man named Steve when the kids were 7. Sarah and Steve never had children of their own. When the kids were 3, I realized I needed to become more involved with them. Prior to that, I had been very involved, but starting at 3, I began my journey to be the father I always wanted to be. Sarah and I co-parented effectively, and I consider Steve a friend. Sarah, Steve, and I are all in our 60s, Jane is nearly 60, AP is in his 50s, and both Jane and I are in our first marriages, having married in our 30s. I needed an external outlet and a way to release my frustrations if I was to achieve my goal. What better outlet than to vent my anger and discuss my situation with strangers on the internet? I am at peace with how and when my life will end. Update 1 ***. Firstly, I want to express my gratitude to all of you for your support. It has been incredibly helpful. I've read all your comments, and they've given me much to contemplate. I want to provide some general information to clarify my situation. Sarah and I were very young when we had the twins. They were a surprise, though always desired. Now in their 40s, my twins have teenagers and older grandchildren. Each Christmas is a week-long celebration at our farm, from Christmas through New Year's. We spend this time cutting down a tree once everyone arrives, decorating, cooking, playing, and celebrating as a family. Sarah and Steve have been part of this tradition since I purchased the farm. I remain firm in not disclosing my diagnosis to anyone until after the new year. If I told Sarah now, she wouldn't be able to keep it to herself, and I don't want to put Steve in a position where he might feel compelled to lie to his wife. I want the kids and grandkids to fully enjoy the week, leaving plenty of time to grieve and prepare in the coming weeks. Jane's presence this week will merely be a minor detail in the grand scheme. In truth, I have no desire for her to be involved with the rest of the family. Regarding finances, Jane and I met and married after we were both well established in our careers and financial standings. She had a good job with a substantial pension, and she also had 2 inheritances held in a trust. Early on, we agreed that we would be comfortable not fully disclosing our entire net worth to each other, as per her insistence. We also have a prenup stating that any property or trust that predates our marriage and any income generated from those resources would not be considered marital property, again, on her insistence. In our marriage, I have provided housing and utilities for both properties. I cover travel, food, fuel, and essentially support her entirely. Jane spends her income and wealth on herself, purchasing her car, clothing, personal travel, and cosmetic surgery. While she is outwardly a very beautiful woman, she has shown that she lacks beauty within. A few days after receiving my diagnosis, I announced my retirement from the non-profit organization where I worked. With my newfound knowledge, I noticed Jane seemed somewhat uneasy, which I can now understand why. She anticipated I would be around more often. So, the following day was my last day of work. I shifted my focus to spending quality time with my family. I provided my lawyer with access to the camera server information, allowing him to monitor any activities, though at this point, I no longer cared about their actions. I understand my worth and recognize that AP is a step down for Jane. Unlike the flashy AP, I lead a low-key life, driving a 15-year-old pickup truck, wearing jeans and t-shirts or coveralls during winter. I am certain that AP does not possess the wealth that Jane believes he does. The trust has invested in his business, and I receive quarterly financial statements. I keep the exact amount of my assets private between my accountants and me, but suffice to say the trust has been growing for 30 years. I live modestly, ensuring there's enough for my great-great-grandchildren to enjoy the farm and have their education funded. Once Jane becomes aware of what she's lost, that will be her reckoning. I simply won't witness it. December has become quite busy. We've engaged in our usual social activities over the past weekends. AP attended one of the parties, making it difficult not to monitor Jane and him closely. I don't believe I was caught up being too busy with wrapping up my job duties, allowing me to maintain my composure. Jane hasn't given any indication that she knows about my condition. I am not proud of this, but we still share the same bed. Lately, I've been feeling selfish, thinking I'm using her, but it appears she has been using me for at least most of this year. I am not as honorable as many of you have portrayed me to be. I despise this slight deceit. Rest assured, Jane won't be receiving everything. The trust is in excellent hands, with detailed management instructions thanks to your comments. I've made plans in case my health deteriorates sooner than anticipated or if I pass away unexpectedly. I've also arranged for in-home care when needed. Jane will not be my caregiver if I become incapacitated. The lawyer will inform Sarah, Steve, and the kids, and Jane will be cut off from me. All important documents, valuables, and other items have been moved to a secure location. Additionally, I've started writing letters to each family member and Jane, which have proven more challenging than I expected. I wanted to provide this update before the festivities begin. I may check in during the holiday week, but if I don't, it is intentional and expected. Again, thank you all. Update 2 ***. Mission accomplished. We had a wonderful, drama-free holiday week, and I successfully made it to 2023. I apologize in advance to anyone affected. Finding humor in my situation helps me cope. I've noticed that I am becoming somewhat selfish lately. All the participants dispersed yesterday afternoon. I have only a few updates, as I won't discuss my week with my family here. It is something I want to cherish privately. Regarding observations about Jane this week, I honestly believe this was the first time she acted out while being with all of us. The entire week has taken a toll on her. It's interesting how knowing something beforehand makes a person's actions more understandable. She was secretive about her phone, left our family gatherings multiple times to get some air, and needed to run into town when one of the grandkids wanted to go. Additionally, the lengths she went to avoid bringing the grandkid along were noticeable. I must admit, I somewhat toyed with it by questioning why she wouldn't take the grandkid. The affair continues as I am now retired, and Jane is inquiring about my plans for the day or week. I respond by telling her and then ask about her own plans for later in the week, planning to suggest we meet for lunch simply to engage with her. It appears someone else was right when they said unpredictability is the cheater's worst enemy. This morning, I met with my lawyer. I had made several decisions and asked him to draft necessary papers. I replaced my temporary will with a new, permanent one which has been signed and shouldn't need to change again. In preparation for potential turmoil, I had him prepare divorce papers based on the prenup and the evidence of Jane's affair. According to the prenup, she would receive nothing but 25% of our shared assets, such as household items and furniture. I retain all my liquid assets, retirement funds, and items purchased with my own wealth. Additionally, if things escalate, she would be required to pay alimony. I have signed these documents and compiled a packet containing all evidence of the affair, which I'm holding in case I need to use it. I have sold my loan to the trust, allowing the trustees to convert it into shares in AP's company. Speaking of the trust, I have decided how I want it managed. I will reduce my share to 1% as a trustee, the twins will receive the majority of the trusteeship, and the 4 grandkids will make up the rest. All grandkids' proxies will be Sarah and Steve. Once each grandkid turns 24, their trusteeship will transfer from Sarah and Steve to the grandkid. If any fraction remains, Sarah will receive the extra share. I have planned a meeting with the kids, Sarah, and Steve for next week. I intend to inform them of everything, after which they will need to sign documents and likely inquire about my motivations. Once this is done, my personal assets will consist of my liquid assets, personal property, and the money from AP's loan. In the worst-case scenario, Jane will receive very little compared to the assets and value in the trust. In the next couple of weeks, I will transfer a few personal items to the kids and grandkids. These items are already stored in a secure location accessible by my lawyer. Some of you have commented on my health. To clarify, I am not fighting this illness, I am allowing nature to take its course. I have no side effects from any treatments, but I have noticed this week that I tire more easily, which my family has also observed. I have dismissed it as just being older, but I still have the persistent cough that initially led to my diagnosis. It was actually tumors in my lungs that led to the diagnosis, but I portrayed it as a lingering cough. I expect my condition to deteriorate quickly once other issues arise, but by then, everyone will be aware. Thank you all for your well wishes regarding this aspect. I am planning to spend time with my family, as a large trip with everyone's various obligations would be difficult. This week was crucial because it was the last time I could be with all of them for an extended period. I'm considering a small trip for myself, we'll see. I do plan to spend one-on-one time with each child and grandchild, that's my next goal. The letters are not yet finished, they are very difficult to write. I will inform you all about how the meeting next week goes. Best wishes to you all. Update 3 ***. Today, I brought my lawyer and a notary, along with my twins, Sarah and Steve, to my farm. The necessary tasks have been completed as smoothly as possible. Understandably, the family is hurt and angry. When they arrived and saw my lawyer and the notary, the tension in the room was palpable. I asked them to simply sit and listen to me, and after I finished, they would sign the papers. After signing the documents, I would answer any questions they might have. They are all aware of the trust. I explained to them that it was time for me to relinquish control of the trust to them. I detailed the importance of the trust in my life, why I established it, and how it was set up independently of my marriage to Jane by mutual agreement. I also left instructions on how I wanted them to manage and utilize the trust. We clarified that the trust would be divided between the twins and the grandchildren, with Sarah and Steve having equal proxy votes for the grandchildren until each grandkid turned 25. Their trust in me was evident as they signed and notarized the documents. After that was completed, copies were made, and I dismissed my lawyer and the notary. I saw them out and thanked them for coming on a Sunday. They were gracious as always. When I returned to the dining room, which we were using as a conference room, everyone was quiet. My daughter broke the silence with her first question. It was definitely a multi-part question or a stream of consciousness. As soon as she paused, I began discussing my health, explaining my diagnosis. I listened as they made plans on how we were going to fight this, and this is where I intervened. I explained the odds, told them I had already sought a second opinion, and reiterated what you all already know. I am not going to seek treatment, I am going to let nature take its course. We spent the next hour to an hour and a half arguing. My daughter left the room a few times to fetch Sarah while they were gone. Steve and I had a heart-to-heart. They understand where I'm coming from, though they might not fully agree. The consensus is that Sarah and my daughter will come around after this turmoil subsides. I knew the next question would be, when did you find out? I answered them, leading to another round of anger and sadness. I explained that I wanted one more holiday week where I wasn't a dead man walking, feeling selfish for wanting this diagnosis to come after the holidays. I didn't want it to overshadow their holiday memories for the rest of their lives. My daughter, sensing there was more to say, acted like a police detective. She wouldn't leave the room until everyone else was out. She asked, "How in the world did Jane not tell you that?" This was when I delivered the final blow. I recounted the same events as in my first post. It was the first time I saw genuine anger in my daughter's eyes. I then told them that Jane is unaware of my diagnosis. I had essentially answered the same questions and plots that many of you suggested, so I guess you all prepared me well. In the end, I told them that I valued them far more than Jane and that I simply wanted to spend the rest of my days in peace, without worrying about Jane. I had to explain my actions during the holiday week. They also pieced together Jane's steps outside for air and her trip into town where she didn't want to bring the grandkid. They were concerned that I did all this alone. I told them I have some friends from social media who helped me through this rough time. I refused to tell them where and how they can learn more later, but I still want this space for myself. The emotions were raw, and we spent a few hours talking sporadically as a group. But I told them I needed to return to discussing the trust. They understand that the trust will help prevent Jane from acquiring my hard-earned wealth and protect them, which is why she wasn't part of this meeting. That being said, I then needed to share the trust's financial details. I am quite certain they saw the trust as a tax dodge or merely a way to protect assets in a marriage where the kids are from another woman. They were unprepared for me to disclose the finances. As I began reviewing the assets and balance sheets, the room fell silent. Then came the question, why did you work so hard all those years when you already had so much? I explained my personal finance philosophy, a concept they have heard from me before and hold dear. I told them that I lived off the trust all these years. Through that trust, I paid for their college educations, made time for them in my life, and was able to work for a non-profit essentially for free. If there's any legacy I want to leave in them and their children, it's to use this trust to do good for others, not just to make sporadic charitable donations, but to work for causes they believe in. During my years with the non-profit, I did much more than just donate money. I trained others and built relationships. I am not happy that today's meeting changed everyone's lives in so many ways, both good and bad, because of me. It wasn't how I wanted it to happen, but it's done. They are fully aware of everything. I have implored them to let me handle Jane on my own and not discuss the trust with anyone else. We will maintain the status quo for now, and as my health worsens, things will change. They all agreed. We spent the next few hours preparing a meal, talking, crying, laughing, and breaking into smaller groups. They all left about an hour ago, but I expect the twins to return. I know they will inform their spouses about what's going on, as that's just how they are, and I love my two in-laws' children very much. I knew that last night was my last quiet night. I feel a weight lifted, replaced by another burden of worry. Thank you all for reading. Your thoughts and prayers mean so much to me. Again, tell your loved ones how you feel and give them a hug. Update for ***. Just a quick update, I was surprised by a visit from one of my ex-wife's girlfriends. She is about the same age as Jane, her name is Carol, and she was with my ex-wife last week during their girls' night out. In fact, the girls' night was at Carol's house. If you read my comments, you would know that last week, Jane came home very intoxicated, using a rideshare service. Carol is an old friend of my ex-wife. Being married for over 2 decades, my ex-wife had likely forgotten that I introduced her to Carol. Carol's parents were friends of mine, so I suppose my unpredictability has contributed to my ex-wife being unstable. During last week's girls' night, Jane reached a breaking point and became so intoxicated that she confided in Carol about her affair. Apparently, she kept talking even after Carol told her to stop. Carol grew angry at her as she continued to condemn Jane. Jane tried to defend her actions, providing an endless stream of details. The next day, Carol reached out to Jane. Jane apparently didn't remember anything from the night before. Carol summarized Jane's confession, but Jane completely denied having an affair, claiming Carol was mistaken. Carol told Jane that she was full of lies and gave her a week to come clean or she would inform me directly. Since Jane continues to deny having said anything, I had my visit with Carol. Over coffee, I received the abbreviated account of Jane's confession. Carol was expecting me to be devastated, but I surprised her by telling her that I already knew. I asked her who else was present when Jane made this confession, and she confirmed that she was the only other person in the house. I asked Carol who else has told her about the affair, and she responded that she would not spread such information before informing me. I apologized and explained that I had my own timeline for dealing with Jane, and involving others would complicate my plans. I asked Carol, as a favor, not to mention it to anyone and to let Jane believe her own story. Carol agreed to the first request but felt the second part didn't feel right. I asked her to try, telling her that I would be okay. Carol said that if I needed anything else, all I had to do was ask. I know that I will have to apologize again when Carol learns about my health, but I will handle that another day. So, I am planning to confront Jane tomorrow during our regular date night. I intend to calmly tell her what I know about my condition and how I plan to spend the rest of my life without her. I hope that confronting her in a public setting will minimize drama, but it could either go as planned or turn into a total disaster. I will provide an update sometime this weekend. My plan after the confrontation is to give her what I know, asking her not to contact me or my family. We will see how it unfolds. Update 5 . Mike Tyson once said that everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Indeed, every plan does not go exactly as envisioned, and mine is no exception. I will take a moment to outline my plan for you. Jane and I have a weekly date night, usually at the same restaurant so frequently that we have a regular table. It's located in the back, still public but away from the high-energy area near the bar. I decided that this would be the place to confront her. I plan to do so after dessert is finished. I made reservations for both my lawyer and his wife simultaneously and gave our server the payment for both of our party's meals before we began. She has been our server for years. I had Carol on call to help Jane once I leave. My plan was to conclude the meal with a conversation about our relationship, record it, then confront her, inform her about my diagnosis and my plans, and give her a letter requesting that she not contact me or my family or come to the farm. I would have the letter witnessed and also leave her a briefcase full of evidence along with the divorce papers. Then, I would stand up and walk away. I expected her not to create a scene to protect her social status. I did record the conversation. She spoke highly of how great our relationship has been over the years, how we are a great team. I asked her if I treated her right, if I had ever abused her, etc. She affirmed that I had. Then I asked her why she cheated on me. She stated that she doesn't know what Carol told me, but that I am wrong. I told her that I had already known before Carol informed me. At that point, I believed Jane had prepared for this conversation, and her demeanor changed. All she could do was ask what, and I told her to let me finish without interruption. She shook her head in agreement, transitioning from a confident and prideful woman to someone looking like a deer caught in headlights. All she could do was nod. I then explained how I came home after my meeting with the doctor, rushing to have the most difficult conversation with the one person I wanted to speak to. I explained that when I drove up, I saw his car, checked the cameras, saw they were in privacy mode, and decided to go to the farm. I told her that I still had footage, and she almost interrupted to ask how, but I signaled with my hand to let me finish. I told her about my diagnosis and my plans not to fight the disease. I saw the heartbreak in her eyes, which made me angry. How could she feel sorrow for me? But I proceeded. I then signaled the waitress, who brought my lawyer. Both he and his wife came to our table. My lawyer handed me a briefcase and a folder with a letter. I told her that I don't want her to contact me, my family, or come to the farm after I leave tonight. I signed the letter and asked the server to witness it. The server and lawyer watched as I handed the letter to Jane. I then dismissed them and proceeded to give the briefcase to Jane. I informed her that I knew much more than she expected and that I was completely devastated. There were divorce papers already signed by me and she could sign them to begin divorce proceedings. I told her I don't expect to survive a contested divorce. As long as I'm alive, she can stay at the home in town, while I will remain at the farm. I told her I will not see her after tonight and don't want to hear any excuses. I have called Carol to help her get home. In true fashion, Jane maintained her composure in public, only muttering a quick "but." I reminded her that I'm leaving and that I'm done. I went to the server, gave her a generous tip, found the owner, and apologized for not giving him a heads up as I was leaving. I saw my son at the door with Carol. Carol passed me with a quick smile, then a look of concern for Jane. My son grabbed my truck, and his wife drove me back to the farm. My son and his wife stayed with me Friday night. I finally got them to go home at midnight. I went to sleep with a great sense of relief but also a renewed feeling of loss. But I had accomplished what I needed to do. The family came to the farm on Saturday to ensure I was okay. I felt somewhat coddled, but it was a good day until Carol came by in the afternoon. She informed me that Jane had fallen apart Friday night but had contacted AP on Saturday after their conversation. Jane realized she was being used by AP and was in a bad state. Carol made sure to tell me that Jane didn't ask her to reach out to me but felt that if I could talk with Jane for a bit, it might give Jane the strength to keep her out of my life. Carol knows how to frame her requests. I reluctantly agreed to a 2-hour discussion at the farm with Jane. I would have someone there for me, and Jane could choose someone to be there for her. We would have a civil conversation. I would not accept being blamed, minimizing, or having blame shifted onto me. The purpose of the meeting would be for her to get answers on how to move forward. The meeting took place this morning. Jane chose Carol, I don't know why, maybe for damage control. I chose my daughter. I wanted to make it as comfortable as possible for Jane, so we wouldn't have to repeat this again. I entered the meeting with a steadfast direction and the goal of removing Jane from my life. The meeting proceeded as expected. Jane cried, apologized, and attempted to downplay the affair. I was not receptive to any of it. I laid out that she would have a place to live until my death, and then the house would be under the trustees' decision. I explained that she would not receive anything from my estate or the trust, but she has her 6-figure pension and her own trust, so she would be fine. I had to rant about something she said. Why won't you fight for me or us? I almost lost my temper but responded by saying, I just don't care about you or us anymore. This devastated her. Here, I expressed my anger, stating that this is the mindset of a selfish cheater who only thinks about themselves. Even after destroying someone, they expect to retain value in that person's eyes and fight for us. I told her that I was not worth fighting for against her desires or greed, and that's why I am sorry for the rant. Jane received the answers she sought but, in hindsight, didn't want them. I don't want another meeting. Continuing these meetings only distracts me from what I want to do. Carol and Jane left, but Carol returned a couple of hours later. She and I had a brief conversation. AP had received notice from the trustees that they are going to convert the loan into shares of his company. Since the trust will become the majority owner, they are requesting a full forensic audit. My daughter, who has an MBA, is not wasting any time. I suspect that when Jane sought comfort from AP, he realized what I already expected. He was using her to see if she could buy the loan from me. There were offhand comments in the recordings that made me suspect he was up to something. With the paperwork filed, AP, knowing that I sold a loan to the trust and that Jane was no longer in my life, found her usefulness diminishing. He informed her that her trust was exhausted. She would only have income from her pension. She saw life with AP as more glamorous than with me. She truly believes his net worth is greater than mine. He drives nice cars, dines at fancy restaurants, and flies first class, whereas I played on my farm, drove an old truck, and flew economy class. Jane was planning on divorcing me when he expressed his undying love and desire to marry her. It highlights how greedy and shallow she is. I won't see it, but I expect my family will inform her of my true worth after my death. I am glad her true colors have been revealed now so I can deal with her and protect my family from her. Then, Carol did something unexpected and caught me off guard. She told me that since I'm no longer tied down, if I need companionship, I can call her. I challenged her, asking why, given my diagnosis, would she or any woman want to spend time with me? There is nothing long-term. She responded that just because Jane is ignorant and didn't know about my condition, it doesn't mean that a divorce or widowhood wouldn't lead a woman to want to spend my remaining time with me. She said I am a wonderful man, and any time spent with me would be cherished. She might as well be first in line for any companionship. I asked her, but most women won't know that Jane and I are separated. She said Jane doesn't want our social groups to know, but she and Sarah will ensure Jane's story is out. I was polite and told her I would let her know. She smiled and gave me a kiss on the cheek. I thought about it after she left, but I'm pretty sure I don't want that complication in my life right now. I've omitted some details, but these are the highlights. I am doing okay. It's been a roller coaster. I need a few days of peace and quiet. The social groups will soon know about both my marriage breakdown and my diagnosis, and I will now receive an endless stream of well wishes. I knew I couldn't delay it forever, but I don't want to be treated differently. However, life is what it is. It's time to start dinner and relax this evening. Again, thank you all for your support. I will try to respond to all of your messages, as they mean so much to me. Update 6 ***. First, I am doing okay. I am still alive and feeling relatively stable. Being on my feet every day is a blessing, though my coughing has worsened a bit, and I'm experiencing some discomfort. I notice that I am getting winded more easily, but overall, it has been a great week. Let's begin with Jane. She has gone underground. Her status in the community has plummeted rapidly. Once word got out, she was politely asked to resign from any leadership roles she held. Most of her social circle has judged her harshly, openly questioning her if she pursued their husbands. She has attempted to reach out a few times, but I have not responded. A couple of times, the attempts were made through proxies. I simply instructed the person to tell Jane that I have said what I needed to say and that I know all I need to know. I really don't care if she needs closure. Why should I worry about her selfish need for that? She knows how I feel because I told her some of the details of the affair. They have been ongoing for at least 6 months. They took 3 trips together, one where they acted like newlyweds, another where they were celebrating a 20-year wedding anniversary, and the last where they met on vacation staying at the same hotel. I suppose role-playing was part of their dynamic. She used my house because she felt comfortable there, but also because it's set back from the road, and passers-by cannot see the cars in the driveway. She also bought herself a second car and stored it in town in a parking garage. She apparently swapped cars when she went to AP's house so that no one would recognize her vehicle. She was very concerned about how this would be perceived by anyone in her social circle, perhaps so I wouldn't catch her. Her actions alone show the extent of effort she put into the affair with AP. All these efforts solidify in my mind how I feel and how I handled the affair. I have no regrets about what I've done. The drunken confession to Carol was only partly due to my unpredictability. Apparently, as soon as the notice of my sale of AP's loan to the trust was received, AP began to distance himself from Jane. From the pressure of nearly being caught and AP's declining interest in her, Jane got extremely drunk and confessed everything to Carol. You know how it goes after that. It's clear to me that AP had ulterior motives for his involvement in the affair. This does not excuse Jane in the least, it only makes her more pitiable. It seems that AP wanted Jane's help with his loan to me, and Jane desired the flashy lifestyle that came with AP's money. It's interesting how unattractive people tend to attract each other. If all of us decent people allow the despicable to pair up, we can find better partners. Sorry to all those out of a sense of devotion who are working on reconciliation, it just wasn't for me. AP is not pleased with the intentions of my daughter and appears to be trying to block it in court. All he has to lose is more money. I've heard rumors that he's attempted to raise funds from other investors to pay off this loan, but unfortunately for him, news of his actions has already begun circulating among my business associates. Remember when I said you invest in people, not companies? Well, there aren't many who want to invest in him. I don't know what my daughter has planned for his company, but it employs quite a few people. She will work hard to ensure it continues, just for them. I think she is worried that AP has something to hide in the company's books for the employees. I hope it's nothing that cannot be corrected. Family time has been wonderful. I attended a high school basketball game with the family this week, and I also organized a poker night that was great. I spent time with old friends, my son, and my grandson at the game. My grandson got to see how old school men sit around, telling stories and just enjoying a night together. I hope to have a few more of these moments. We've had family meals 3 times this week. Carol did come over one night and brought dinner, we ate and talked, but I kept her at arm's length. I am still not comfortable letting her help with chores on the farm. For comfort, I walk the fences, sometimes drive, check on the animals, check on the employees, and help with equipment maintenance. Knowing that this farm will stay in the family and continue to operate brings me peace. A part of me lies beyond my time here. I've also had several friends and acquaintances stopping by. Someone mentioned a living wake, and I believe that's what they meant. I am encouraging anyone to come out and see me. I enjoy spending time with these folks, even if it might be the last time. Thank you for suggesting that, and thank you all for your support, it truly helps. Update 7 ***. Unfortunately, I saw Jane again. I'm still here, but it has been a bit rough. I'm now back home, but I spent a few days in the hospital. I was found unconscious but still breathing, so they took me to the emergency room. I do have a do not resuscitate order, but I never died. I've always hated hospitals, but now, with my diagnosis, I really despise being there. I don't want to die in a hospital. I've been home for a while now and can no longer drive off the farm. They really don't want me driving on the farm, but I am determined to continue doing my chores and watching the sunrise and sunset as long as I can. I also have full-time home healthcare workers, or as I call them, babysitters, but I am not going to argue with the family about that. Basically, I don't remember anything until I woke up in the hospital. Most of my family and Carol were in the room with me, and I was stable by then. The doctors just wanted to observe me for a day or two and run more tests to confirm my condition. Either my twins, Sarah, or Carol were with me almost the entire time. There was one night when no one was with me, and I woke up to find Jane in my room. I guess she used the wife card with a duty nurse who didn't know not to let her in. I was tired, but she was acting like a sweet and devoted wife. I don't know why. When I realized she was holding my hand and stroking my head, I pulled away. She was hurt. She then began a new script of being so sorry, claiming she didn't mean anything she said, trying to use me, etc. I just sat there, not engaging, which upset her. She demanded that I talk to her. She was loud enough to catch the nurse's attention. The nurse noticed Jane's demeanor and my discomfort. The nurse was professional and told Jane to wait outside because she needed to perform some checks. Once Jane was out of the room and the door closed, the nurse asked me if I was okay. I told her that Jane was my ex-wife and that there should be notes instructing her not to be allowed in. She apologized and asked what she could do to reduce my stress. I asked her to call my emergency contacts, and she did. In about 45 minutes, Sarah, my daughter, and Carol walked into the room. By then, Jane was back and still speaking nonsense, but at a much quieter level. Once Jane saw them, she knew she needed to leave. I quietly asked her to just go, as none of the other patients deserved her making a scene to seek attention. I am very thankful that she left quietly, but she first gave me a quick peck on the forehead. I recoiled slightly, but if I have to accept that for the peace of the other patients, so be it. The women in my life apologized profusely to me. Honestly, I cannot be mad at them, they have their own lives. They all arranged a schedule to ensure I was not left alone again, and I'm sure my daughter thanked the nurse for calling them while also expressing her anger to the staff for allowing Jane in despite specific instructions to the contrary. This event just shows me that Jane is like a drowning person, grabbing for anything. I am not special in her eyes, she sees me as something she can use to stay afloat. After every interaction with Jane, I see how much darker and more malevolent AP is. He is still as much of a jerk as before. His accounting department has sensed the shifting winds, and in meetings with my daughter, they have been given a full picture. There is no criminal conduct by AP in his business. It is clear that he was exploiting every perk and loophole to increase his income over his base pay, harming the bottom line. So, when my daughter takes control, he will see a 60% reduction in the company's value, which will really piss him off. I have a feeling she might outright fire him and move him to a silent minority role, causing his flashy lifestyle to crash and burn. He has threatened lawsuits, but hasn't taken any action yet. I believe his credit and reputation in the area are in ruins. Carol has become a more permanent fixture in my life. I have to say, I don't mind her company and companionship, maybe she is wearing me down, as she has been staying over several days a week. I hope to recover sooner rather than later, but since I can't drive anymore, I'll have to rely on others more. This is uncharted territory for me. Carol has been eagerly volunteering to support me in this area, and before you ask, no, there is nothing physical between us other than sitting close together. Thank you all for your continued support.